Absolutely. It's very true. And I left at the end of I think at the 8th year I left. I thought, I've got to get out of here.
When you were under contract at MGM and kind of an MGM player, and you said they controlled your life a lot, were you encouraged to socialize and go out and be photographed at nightclubs and things like that, or is that something you could get out of?
No, that was something you could get out of. What they liked to do was to have you go to the premieres of the MGM movies, and they would set you up with somebody to take you, you know, and they would do everything. You'd come in, you'd have your hair done, and they'd put makeup on if you needed it, and they'd dress you for it.
With their clothes?
Yeah. They'd pull things out of the wardrobe. So that, you see, they kind of kept you within the framework of the studio at all times. And we went on a lot of tours with movies. Actually, the biggest tour I ever went was on a movie called Belle Amie. I loved it because I did it right after my divorce from my first husband, yes.
In the meantime, you'd met this young actor who was testing at MGM, Peter Shaw, a very good-looking actor, and you did the test with him.
Yes, I did.
And something wonderful came out of that test. It's not for Peter, except maybe it was good for Peter.
Yes, it was the deciding moment when I said to Peter, darling, you can't act. Give it up.
Right on the table.
He'd had a few years. He'd been under contract to MGM for, I think, 3 years. And he was the best-looking man in the world.
Errol Flynn type.
Just, exactly. Anyway, we were so glad we found each other when we did. And we were introduced, of course, through Hurd Hatfield, who...
Played Dorian Gray.
Played Dorian Gray. So we were going off to this house party in the Ojai Valley in California, and Hurd arranged for this young English fella to pick me up at my house. And he did. And we never looked back. We just stuck together like glue, you know, for 53 years.
53 years.
It was a wonderful, wonderful marriage.
Going back to that screen test with Peter, something wonderful came for you, though.
Yes.
Right.
The State of the Union.
Frank Capra saw the test.
Frank Capra saw the test. Also, don't forget, Kate Hepburn saw the test. And she championed me always. She recognized here was a kid who was not the run-of-the-mill, you know, and she certainly wasn't run-of-the-mill. And God bless her, she said, sign that girl. She's, you know, she's the one for this role. She couldn't do better.
And that was Great Property.
Yeah.
Directed by Frank Capra with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, Van Johnson.
Yes. I was in very fast company indeed. So I really had to work very hard to maintain my level. And Frank Capra helped me. I mean, he knew. But that's something I have to remember, and I know you're aware of it, that I always worked really with the best people. I just had these incredible opportunities to work with the best. I mean, you're as good as the people you're with, you know, really. You have to realize that.
Now, also in there, you worked with another giant, Cecil B. DeMille, in one of his great epics, Samson and Delilah.
You bet.
That was on loan out, I believe.
That was on a loan
Paramount,
out
wasn't
from, yes, from MGM.
And what was that experience like? And
well, that was like being let out of school because, you know, MGM was, they used to call it the factory. And in a sense it was. Everything was very strict over there. Everybody was very controlled, especially the contract players. Certain things were expected, and they really held you on a short rein at MGM. Whereas when you went to Paramount, it was like going into this kind of wonderful, easygoing country club, you know. Everybody had these kind of open-door dressing room situations. You had Danny Kaye, you had Sinatra, you had all kinds of people kind of drifting around Bogey, and they were all kind of in and out of each dress. At the end of the shooting day, they'd all gather in one or the other dressing rooms and have a drink. You'd be invited in to have a cocktail, you know, before you went home. And the sound stages were smaller, and it was a wonderful, warm, comfortable, nice atmosphere.
what was DeMille like to work with?
Well, DeMille was a hard taskmaster, but a friendly man, warm man. He'd ponder everything and very carefully, and he would talk to you in very serious tones about everything because He considered everything he was doing to be frightfully important, which it was, and an awful lot of research and thought, and he wanted to share all that with you all the time. He was not a small talk man. I mean, if you asked him a question, he'd give you a 3-4 hour answer kind of thing. But he was okay. I didn't have any quarrel with him. I always said he was a bit of a foot fetish, because he was terribly involved with how people's feet were going to look in sandals. Edith had warned me. She said, he'll probably come to the first dress fitting and he'll want to see your feet. So have a good scrub and we'll put you in sandals.
It's good to be warned about things like that.
Incredible sort of sandals around the legs, you know.
But that was also a very prestigious film to be in at that time.
Oh, very much so.
It was one of the major films in 1949.
Yes, it was. Yeah. It opened with a big splash.
Right.
And I got a tremendous amount of attention from it because I was killed in such a wonderfully theatrical way. You know, with that spear going right through me and coming out the other side.
That was also the period, wasn't it, that Dory Sherry had come over to MGM and was kind of changing the whole philosophy of the studio.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people were either leaving or being let go, major stars, because they thought they could hire them whenever they needed them. They didn't have to pay them under contract anymore. So that whole structure was changing so much.
That's right.
Then there were kind of tough days for you after that, right? When
yes,
you were
they
freelancing.
Were. Very, very thin.
But I think it was tough for everybody in the studio era then, because that was basically had come to an end.
Well, it's very true.
Yeah.
So what did we do? I mean, for revenue, I started in on television.
Now, one of the films you made during those freelancing days was The Court Jester with Danny Kaye, which was a prestigious film, maybe the best film Danny Kaye ever made. What was he like to work with?
He was a wild man on that movie. He really kept us in stitches.
Did he stick to the script, or was he one of those that kind of went off in various directions?
No, he stuck to the script. Yeah, absolutely. And we became good friends.
About the same time, you made your Broadway debut in Hotel Paradiso. And didn't that have a big effect on you? Because right after that, you started appearing in a lot of really prestigious films, like The Long Hot Summer, Martin Ritt directing.
Yes, The Long Hot Summer.
And Orson Welles, Paul Newman, and Joanne Woodward.
Great directors, over and over and over again.
And what was Orson Welles like to work with?
Well, we got along, you know. He wanted the last shot in the film, and Marty wanted it a 2-shot with the two of us. But Orson just wanted that last shot. So I wasn't about to fight with him, so we gave it to him. You're sitting down there.
Terrific. Let's talk a little about Elvis Presley. You were 7 years older, I think, but you played his mother in Blue Hawaii. What was that experience like?
Well, I was obviously awed by being in the presence, and but he was an awfully nice young man in those days. He always was a wonderfully nice young man, very caring person. He had his terrible problems of very personal nature, but in those days he'd just come out of the army. He was fit, he was slender, and he was at top of his form. And he couldn't have been nicer to me. We had a lovely time. It was a wonderful location. We were on Kauai in the Hawaiian Islands. I'll never forget it. It was really wonderful.
Did you get to spend much time with him?
Yes, we sat around the set, and I had some wonderful scenes with the man who played my husband, and the three of us, together. And she was such a funny character, Her whole reaction to her son, who she didn't understand at all, and she was a real kind of Southern belle type, and she was going on, give me some sugar, honey, kind of thing. And he loved it. He thought it was terribly funny. He was very sweet.
You always had many accents in different films.
Cool, so it has. Our profession is entertainment, see?
Well, I declare.
Was that difficult to acquire the ability to do that, or did that come easily to you?
It came easily to me. Isn't it awful to say that? But it did. Accents, I had a very keen ear, picked up accents from people around me. I'd have to hear them again sometimes to do it well, but it served me well in my career. It really has.
Right around that same time, Peter Shaw's second command now at MGM,
Yeah.
and you did a favor for Peter and Vincent Minnelli with the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Tell a little about
You're
that.
one of the few people who know about
I
that.
know, but-
I guess the cat's out of the bag now.
Yeah.